You're watching UATV News. My name is Inna Kosinska. Good evening. People who remain on the territories uncontrolled by Kyiv are victims of Russian aggression, and the state does not have the right to leave them without support. According to the Kharkiv Institute of Social Research, every second out of 10,000 Ukrainians surveyed is convinced of this. Besides, almost the same number of Ukrainians believe that the president will find a way to restore the territorial integrity of our country.
Today, Ukrainians consider the president of Ukraine a key player in creating a state action plan for which there is a great demand. 74.4% of the respondents indicated this. It is very important that Ukrainians in all regions are clearly aware that we have the international armed conflict caused by the armed aggression of the Russian Federation. For us, this study is undoubtedly important, and we rely on it in the context of developing further policies for the occupation and reintegration of temporarily occupied territories.
The United Nations is ineffective in addressing issues such as Russian aggression in Ukraine. That's how Director of the Center for International Studies, Volodymyr Dubovik, reacted to the call of President Volodymyr Zelensky to wake up to the UN delegates. He said that the UN is now unable to resolve not only the Ukrainian issue, but also many other conflicts.
Unfortunately, the United Nations organization, with all its positive actions, has many negative features, including its ineffectiveness in terms of resolving many conflicts. Some kind of peacekeeping actions, yes, this is the maximum, given both parties agree. If not, then nothing comes of it. Some important decisions are passed only through the Security Council. Perhaps there are also corresponding resolutions, but there we know that Russia is in session and has a permanent veto, and therefore it will block any decisions that are unfavorable to Moscow. Therefore, unfortunately, it must be stated that the United Nations is not that effective in resolving of disputes and conflicts, including those similar to the one we have with Russia now.
Over the past 6 months, the number of shellings in Donbas has increased by 3.5 times. This is the data from the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner. The Ukrainian military themselves also speak of deterioration of the situation along the contact line. Illegal armed formations cover our positions in the Luhansk region with artillery fire almost every day.
Literally, over the past 2 months, aggravation and active hostilities after sunset happen very often, almost every day. When, for example, the monitoring missions do not work, then, just then, the active hostilities begin. Or in the morning at dawn. The other day, it turns out, on our positions, 10 pieces of AGL flew just in front of us. An AGL means an automatic grenade launcher. Well, 2 days it went out and then aggravated again.
The US Congress approved new sanctions against Russia. The House of Representatives voted in favor of a draft defense budget for the next year. The document included a ban on Americans to buy Russian government bonds. In addition, the presidential administration proposed to consider sanctions against 35 Russians. Among them are Russian Prime Minister, Presidential Press Secretary, Editor-in-Chief of the Russia Today TV channel. The project also includes new sanctions against the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline. The US Senate must also approve its version of the defense budget. Then the details of the 2 drafts will be agreed, and both chambers will again vote for the document. Only after that, it will be sent to the US president for signing. In the next few months, Ukraine is going to receive almost 500,000 doses of Pfizer's coronavirus vaccine weekly. This was announced by Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal during the Q&A hour to the government in the parliament. According to him, the country is now getting ready for a new wave of COVID-19 pandemic. The number of sick and hospitalized people is growing daily. At the same time, more than 98% of those who were admitted to hospitals due to complications are not vaccinated.
We are preparing hospitals and our medical system. We have prepared 3 waves of medical institutions, about 90,000 beds for patients with coronavirus. The first wave of hospitals is more than 35,000 beds, which are almost 100% supplied with oxygen. We have developed effective treatment protocols as well as innovative drugs for patients with COVID-19. We as a society and Ukraine should understand the main thing: vaccination is the only way to overcome the pandemic in our country.
A historical time to build civilized and honest relations between big business and the state. This is how Volodymyr Zelensky called the approval of the law on oligarchs. On Thursday, 279 MPs voted for the document in the second reading. However, later it turned out that due to a technical error in the text of the law that was not taken into account by the MPs, the document could lead to a legal collision. Thus, the draft would be revoted, and the MPs are going to do it in the nearest future. More information on how the voting was held and how will the government determine the oligarchs in the following report.
The opposition accuses the majority and its representative in the Presidium, Ruslan Stefanchuk, of dictatorship, while the MPs continue studying the bill on oligarchs. After 2 hours of negotiations between representatives of all factions, dozens of deputies at the Rose Room, and an attempt to remove the first vice speaker, the deputies still vote for the document.
279 votes for. The bill passed.
President Volodymyr Zelensky was the one who initiated this bill. The fight against oligarchs is the part of his election program.
Oligarchs are sponging off citizens of Ukraine, people. They are the state of a small group of people who receive super profits. President Zelensky and his political force stood for fighting the oligarchs, for minimizing their influence on the state. And today we have approved a historical law.
The bill provides for the creation of a register of oligarchs, the criteria by which they will be determined: influence on the political life of the country, media resources under control, significant assets and ownership of a monopoly business. The National Security Council of Ukraine is going to play the main role in identifying such people.
The National Security and Defense Council is a collegiate body. It is very difficult to arrange anything within the council, because there are different branches of government represented there. This is the security issue. It is the National Security Council. The question of the oligarchs' influence on the country is a question of security, so everything is logical here.
Secretary of the National Security Council Alexei Danilov thanked the MPs for the decision. According to him, the Council is already testing an information and analytic system for monitoring the actions of the oligarchs.
It is a third-class system with the highest level of complexity, which will be able to monitor all those people who, after the adoption of the law on oligarchs in the parliament, should be placed under our monitoring. The system is ready and it can work with classified documents.
After place on the list, an oligarch will face restrictions.
It is uncomfortable and unpleasant to be branded as oligarch. Limitations are not strict according to the law. That is, non-participation in privatization, a ban on financing the political process, and it is necessary to declare property as civil servants do. Also, everyone, namely state officials and politicians, who contact with oligarchs should declare those contacts.
This document was considered according to a special procedure, article by article, without statements by the authors of the amendments, and there were almost 1,300 of them. Opposition factions stood against this voting option and stated ineffectiveness of the bill countering the oligarchs.
In fact, there are no instruments that could be used to fight oligarchs. That is, we should be talking about fighting the monopolies and removing oligarchs from governing the state assets. Instead, very strange and unusual anti-constitutional functions are envisaged for the National Security and Defense Council. That is, to appoint this or that person as an oligarch.
Any oligarch can register the media for a foreign company that is not affiliated with him. If they want to privatize something, they will do it through some related companies.
Other MPs says that this is only the first draft law that starts de-oligarchization in the country.
The next step is the reform of the anti-monopoly legislation. We also regulate lobbying activities in order to regulate the ties of those who are interested in the approval of certain legislative initiatives.
The National Security Council will start forming the register of oligarchs immediately after the president signed the law, and in 6 months restrictions will be applied for those who are included in the register, reported by Ksenia Bugay, Yulia Krychkova, UATV News.
There will be no cancellation of cash registers for small and medium businesses. During an extraordinary meeting of the Parliament of Ukraine, the MPs considered several versions of the bills at once, but none of the initiatives got enough votes. Cash registers for entrepreneurs remain mandatory starting January 1st, 2022. The day before, representatives of the SafeFop movement demanded to postpone or completely cancel the introduction of cash registers.
Those are bills that exempt the entrepreneur from the obligatory fiscal cash register. In fact, it kills small business, which is really small. And additional costs for accounting and maintenance of the cash register will lead to closure. I would like to thank the entrepreneurs, small businesses which are moving to registrars of settlement operations. If in November last year taxpayers installed only 28,000 registers, today this number exceeds 70,000.
Nord Stream 2 will be stopped if Russia abuses it. The statement was made by candidate for the post of Chancellor of Germany from the ruling German bloc at the television debate. Armin Laschet clarified that it goes about geopolitical guarantees against Ukraine. At the same time, he stressed now Germany needs this gas pipeline because of the rejection of other energy sources. In turn, the candidate from the Liberal Free Democratic Party, Christian Lindner, when asked whether he supports Ukraine's membership in NATO, answered with a short no. These were the last television debates before the parliamentary election in the country. Voting will take place on Sunday.
We need this economic project because if we exit from all energy types, we obviously need gas in the coming year. What's important to me is that what the German government agreed on is now being implemented, and that is a geopolitical guarantee that Ukraine suffers no disadvantages. Should Russia question this, the project will immediately be stopped.
The 5th annual International Forum Creative Ukraine has started in Kyiv. His goal is to find new ideas and solutions for the development of this industry. Among the participants are politicians, successful creative entrepreneurs, international experts in the fields of culture and economics. More about how the creative industry is developing in Ukraine in our report.
Cancelled concerts, theatre plays, festivals and tours. The pandemic had the most negative impact on the creative industry. Artists, authors, distributors, event organizers were left without work. According to businessmen in the creative industry, only those who are able to quickly reformat and adapt to the new conditions remained afloat.
We have reassembled our business. We are still transforming. We are still reassembling, developing, working out a strategy. We have moved from such a family company to a company that is restructuring the way the world's large holding operates.
Despite all the difficulties, the creative industry was able to resist and even to replenish the budget of Ukraine by more than $4.3 billion.
A creative economy can make a significant contribution to a country's economy at a time when natural resources are dwindling, and there is no longer a need to fight for who has more oil or gas. It is worth fighting for the talents of people and creating conditions for them to be able to earn money and promote our talents around the world. An important feature of the creative economy is that it can encourage people to work not only for Ukraine and themselves, but also for the world. By creating conditions for our talents, we can become not only richer, but also glorify our country.
The Ministry of Health understands how the quarantine restrictions affect the Ukrainian cinema, theatre and made maximum concessions by allowing, for example, concerts to be held with a 50% fullness of the halls, but now is not the time for compromises but for vaccinations.
There is no as loyal Ministry of Health in the world as in Ukraine, since for the creative industry a fairly large number of exceptions and separate rules were made during quarantine starting from February of 2020. Today we have to come to some kind of social memorandum and say that it is time to stop looking for compromises. Today we are already at the finishing stage. We understand how it is possible to overcome the pandemic. Get vaccinated, and that's it. And then I think it will be possible to say goodbye to quarantine restrictions.
Within 2 days, the forum participants should walk out and present a strategy for the development of creative industries. The priority area is partnership between the state and private companies. Reported by Ksenia Buhay and Yulia Bardish, UATV News.
That's all for this hour. More updates on our official website, YouTube, Twitter and Facebook pages. Thank you for staying with the YouTube channel. Goodbye.